Years of war with their most bitter and fierce rival, the Persian Empire, also known as the Sassanids, had ended in 591 AD, with a peace treaty being brokered by the Roman Emperor Maurus when he had helped the new Persian king Khosrow II to the throne. But now Maurus was dead, murdered by his political rival Phocas in 602 AD. Khosrow immediately declared war against Phocas to avenge his friend, but also to further his own territorial ambitions and glory by reconquering Armenia and Mesopotamia. The Persians first attacked in the Levant, conquering city after city. They took Egypt and islands in the Aegean and even parts of Anatolia. The Romans were in crisis and the Persians seemed unstoppable. The Roman army was demoralized and defeat seemed certain. A young man, Heraclius, was the son of the Roman general Heraclius the Elder, the exarch of Africa. He followed his father's rebellion in 608 against Phocas, and with his father's troops and navy led a naval invasion of Constantinople itself. Heraclius's troops successfully took the capital, and upon capturing Phocas, shortly before executing him, he said to Phocas, "Is it thus that you have governed the empire?" And Phocas replied, "Will you govern it any better?" The Persians had taken advantage of the Roman civil war and had conquered frontier towns in Armenia and Upper Mesopotamia. At the same time that Heraclius was being coronated in the Hagia Sophia, the Persians had conquered all of the Roman cities east of the Euphrates and were in Armenia and were swiftly moving into Cappadocia. Heraclius attempted to negotiate peace with Khosrow, as now the traitor Phocas was dead. However, the Persians rejected this, as their successors had emboldened them to dream of a new Achaemenid empire and the complete destruction of their bitter rival, the Romans. An old general of Maurus, Philippicus, was appointed to lead the Romans against the Persians, but he was removed after defeat deemed him incompetent. Heraclius, in desperation, appointed himself commander alongside his brother Theodore. The lack of leadership had allowed the Persians under their general Shahrbaraz to sweep into Syria. Heraclius quickly met him at Antioch to attempt to stop him, but was defeated by the Persian general Shahin. The defeat allowed the Persians to completely sever the Roman Empire in half. Damascus, Apamea, and Emesa fell in 613. The Persians killed 70,000 of the populace, enslaved nearly 40,000, and burned Christian churches and took their relics to their capital, Ctesiphon. Christians blamed Jews for aiding the Persians, and hysteria and fear was rife. Meanwhile, Shahrbaraz invaded Egypt, which had not been invaded for 300 years. The loss of Egypt crippled Constantinople as it relied on the grain shipments from Egypt to feed its populace. As a result, grain rationing began in Constantinople. Persian military might seemed invincible, and the demise of the Roman Empire seemed certain. The disdain the Persians had for the weakness of the Romans was confirmed by a letter from Khosrow to Heraclius. "Khosrow, greatest of gods and master of the earth, to Heraclius, his vile and insolent slave. Why do you still refuse to submit to our rule and call yourself a king? Have I not destroyed the Greeks? You say that you trust in your God. Why is he not delivered out of my hands Caesarea, Jerusalem, and Alexandria? And shall I not also destroy Constantinople? But I will pardon your faults if you submit to me, and come hither with your wife and children. And I will give you lands, vineyards, and olive groves, and look upon you with a kindly aspect. Do not deceive yourself with vain hope that Christ, who was not able to save himself from the Jews, who killed him by nailing him to a cross, even if you take refuge in the depths of the sea, I will stretch out my hand and take you, whether you will or no." In 617, the Persians reached Chalcedon and were within sight of the city walls of Constantinople. Emperor Heraclius was ready to stand down and let the Byzantine Empire become a Persian client state, and attempted to initiate peace talks, but was rejected by Khosrow. Persians, favouring consolidating their conquest of Egypt, withdrew and took over Rhodes and other islands in the Aegean in preparation for an eventual naval assault on Constantinople. The despair was so great that Heraclius considered moving the capital to Carthage. With peace being rejected and death certain, Emperor Heraclius organised a force to mount a final desperate strike against the Persians. He reorganised the empire to fight. Precious materials from the Hagia Sophia monuments were stripped and melted, and the coin was debased. A proclamation was made to all Christian men that it was their duty to fight. A coin was issued with the image of Heraclius and the text, Deus adjuta Romanus, may God help the Romans. On the day after Easter 622, Heraclius and his army left the capital. They marched to Cappadocia, forcing Shahrbaraz to move to eastern Anatolia to stop their access to Persia. Shahrbaraz and Heraclius would face each other in the fall of 622. After discovering Shahrbaraz's ambush, Heraclius feigned a retreat to lure the Persians out of their hiding places and then countercharged them with his heavy infantry, winning a crushing victory for the first time in the war. However, the celebration was not to last, as in the west, the Avars and Slavs took advantage of Roman weakness, attacked the Balkans, and in quick succession they took over numerous key cities, such as Singidunum and Serdica, but failed to take Thessalonica, which was vital for the Romans. Heraclius was now fighting on two fronts, and offered tribute and peace to the Khagan of the Avars. Invited to a meeting with the Khagan on the 5th of June 623, Heraclius and his royal court were tricked into walking into an ambush that Heraclius just managed to escape. He was chased to Constantinople, while the Khagan killed 70,000 Thracians who had come to see the emperor. Heraclius desperately needed peace, so he gave a subsidy of 200,000 solidi and his son and nephew to secure peace with the Khagan. He also tried to give peace to Khosrow, threatening an invasion of Persia, but again was rejected. With all other options gone, on 25th of March 624, Heraclius and his army marched from Constantinople to finally assault the Persian homeland, in a last effort to end the Persian threat. The emperor did not bother to secure his rear, as he marched through Armenia to assault the core Persian lands. Heraclius' army was no more than 40,000, and maybe even only 20,000 to 24,000. In defiance of Khosrow's gloating letter to him, he made sure to recapture Caesarea on his way to eastern Anatolia. At Gazanka he met Khosrow's army, which was 40,000 strong. With the help of loyal Arabs, he captured and killed some of Khosrow's guards, which caused the great king to flee and the army to disintegrate. After destroying the great Zoroastrian fire temple at Takht-i-Suleiman, he wintered in Caucasian Albania. Furious at his humiliating defeat, Khosrow sent 3 armies commanded by Shahrbaraz, Shahin, and Sharaplakan to finally trap and destroy Heraclius' forces. When reports of the sheer amount of men massed against the Romans filtered into camp, the men became visibly worried. Heraclius saw this and made a speech reassuring his men by saying, "Do not let the number of our enemies disturb us, for, God willing, one will pursue 10,000. Facing overwhelming odds, Heraclius aimed to engage and defeat the 3 armies separately, planning to use the jealous rivalry between the 3 generals against them. 2 Roman soldiers who feigned desertion were sent to Shahrbaraz and claimed that the Romans were fleeing before the army of Shahin. Shahrbaraz, not wanting to miss out on the glory, rushed to join the battle. The trap set. Heraclius met them at Tigranakert and routed one army after the other. At a loft, Heraclius launched a surprise night attack on the Persian camp and destroyed the army. Shahrbaraz, naked and alone, barely escaped, having lost his harem, his men, and his baggage. Heraclius stayed in eastern Anatolia over the winter. He passed Mount Ararat, which was the resting place of Noah's Ark in the Bible, and carried on towards the Euphrates. The next battle was at Sarus River, when Heraclius saved the battle by charging across the bridge with his rear guard to save his soldiers, winning the admiration of Shabaraz, who stated to a renegade Greek, "See your emperor, he fears these arrows and spears no more than would an anvil." Khosrow, the great king, knew that he needed to attack the core of the Byzantines if he was going to finish them off. He planned a coordinated attack with the Avars from the west, and his general Shahin and Shabaraz from the east, to attack and destroy Constantinople itself. Only the Byzantine navy separated them from each other over the Bosphorus Strait. Heraclius was in the field still, raiding the Persian heartland, but he sent some reinforcements to help. On 29th of June 626, some 12,000 well-trained Byzantine cavalry troops defended the city against some 80,000 Avars and Slavs. Morale was high as the Patriarch of Constantinople led processions along the wall with the icon of the Virgin Mary, and the Byzantines believed they were under divine protection. On August the 7th, the attack began. Wave after wave of sea-borne troops were defeated by the Byzantine navy. The land assaults by the Avars in the west also failed. The defeats led to Shahin dying from depression, and when Emperor Heraclius showed Shabaraz intercepted letters ordering the general's death by the great king Khosrow, the general switched sides and withdrew to northern Syria to easily support Heraclius or Khosrow if he decided to do so. Alliances were made with the Turkic tribes, and now the stage was set for the invasion of the Iranian heartland. In 626, an alliance was made with the Gokturks and Heraclius prior to the invasion. In 627, Heraclius invaded Iran during the winter. His army numbered 25,000 to 50,000 troops and 40,000 Gokturks. However, the Gokturks deserted him over the winter conditions, leaving him only with his men. On December the 12th at Nineveh, Heraclius again faced the Persians under Rasad, luring them into a feigned retreat, and turned his troops upon them, nearly routing the Persian army. Some stories say he faced Rasad in single combat in this battle and slew him with one strike. There was now no Persian army to oppose Heraclius, as he plundered Dastagerd and captured 300 Byzantine flags and tremendous riches from one of Khosrow's palaces. Khosrow fled into the mountains of Susiana to rally an army to defend the capital of Ctesiphon. In 628, Emperor Heraclius gave this ultimatum to Khosrow II. "I pursue and run after peace. I do not willingly burn Persia, but compelled by you. Let us now throw down our arms and embrace peace. Let us quench the fire before it burns up everything." The humiliated Persian army rebelled and overthrew Khosrow, shutting him in a dungeon, where he was starved and shot by arrows on the 5th day. His son Kavad II was raised to the status of great king and sent peace offers to the victorious Emperor Heraclius. Under the treaty, the Byzantines regained all of their lost territories, a war indemnity, all of their captured soldiers, the one true cross, and other relics that were lost in the capture of Jerusalem in 614. Heraclius and his victorious army returned to Constantinople as heroes. A massive Roman triumph was held for them as they returned under the one true cross. People prostrated in the streets in joy. The parade went towards the Hagia Sophia, where the one true cross was raised until it towered over the altar. In this moment, many thought the golden age of the Byzantines had begun, and Heraclius was hailed as the new Scipio for his 6 years of unbroken victories, and for leading the Roman army where none had ever gone before. The future seemed bright for Rome and Heraclius. Both the Roman and Sasanian empires were weak after decades of fighting. Upon ascension to the throne, Kavad II had his father and brothers all executed. However, a devastating plague broke out in Iran's west, killing 1/3 of Iran's population and taking Kavad to an untimely death, mere months after he just took the throne. It now passed to his 7-year-old son, Ardashir III, Persia was suddenly plunged into a brutal civil war. Upon the death of Kavad II, Heraclius sent Shahrbaraz, the general who switched to Heraclius' side in the war, a letter. Now that the Iranian king is dead, the throne in the kingdom has come to you. I bestow it on you, and on your offspring after you. If an army is necessary, I shall send to your assistance as many as you may need. In April 630, Shahrbaraz took the throne of Persia, but he was assassinated by a spear throw only 40 days later. Meanwhile, in the Arabian Peninsula, a new power, unbeknownst to both empires, was rising. A man named Muhammad had recently united the warring Arab tribes of the Arabian Peninsula together, and from that his successors launched an unprecedented invasion of both Sassanid Persia and the Eastern Roman Empire. Fired by Islam, the Muslim conquest would sweep, unrelenting and unstoppable, across the Levant and Mesopotamia, defeating the Sassanids and absorbing them into their caliphate, and then turning their attention to taking the Eastern Roman Empire itself.